Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for Seek Power Always, that power within you to do your deeper work in the world. I think it is so important now more than ever to dig deep into your internal power and start asking yourself, how are you moving through crisis? We are in uncertain times. So many things are happening, and I am just really excited about, my lovely guest that I have today, who is a great example of resilience in tough times and moving through things. So I really want you to lean in and listen in as we talk today with, I feel so honored to introduce my special guest today, Elizabeth Frazier. She is a wife, mom, friend, empath, and sex trafficking survivor. Despite being sold for sex for nearly 20 years, she has turned the pain into passion of helping others. In 2016, she started a company called Hero Bands to bring awareness and hope to others. We need more of that today than ever. Hero Bands was created to ease people's heartache, no matter what caused the pain. Think about what kind of pain that you're having in your life today, in our world today. What are the things that we can do to make changes around that? Elizabeth loves music, especially Kelly Clarkson, having dance parties in the kitchen with her family, and hiding in her room, eating treats and watching shows. Elizabeth lives in California with her husband and her 5 children. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Diane. It's an honor to be here with you.
Thank you so much. It's interesting when we look at things that have happened in our life and how we are called to use any of those things to help in the world. People are feeling so disempowered right now. There's so many different kinds of uncertain times and crisis and things that we need to move through. How are you looking at what is happening today, and how are you utilizing some of the resources that you use to move through your experience in being trafficked to not only help your children, but to help yourself move through tough times?
I've learned a lot of different ways to try to cope with things, and I've learned how different people are and how different things help different people at different times. Myself included, my kids included, and a lot of my friends and family. And something that's really helped me is understanding and realizing the power of words, and how if we are positive with ourselves and positive with our children, then we can get through things a little more gracefully and a little more empowered, for me. If we are negative and hard on ourselves and always talking down to ourselves, then it feels more painful to get through even the daily hardships that we're dealing with right now in our world.
Right. You talk about your hero bands as ways to help you choose who you want to be. Can you talk a little bit about the hero bands themselves and how that helps you do that and how you choose your words each day?
Sure. So hero bands are bracelets that I make with empowering words on them. And I have probably 30 in my room, and I have them on these vases that I look at every morning. And when I'm thinking about what I have going on that day, I look through my words and think, what am I going to need the most to help me get through the day the best that I can? And when I first started wearing them, I had a lot of depression, a lot of shame, and I still struggle with those things. That's not something that's gone away, but when I would pick my words, I would think, okay, I want to feel peace today. I really want to feel peace. I don't feel it, but I know I want to. So that's the word I would pick, and I'd wear it and rub it throughout the day and just try to feel peace. And I started feeling it, and I didn't even realize it was happening for months, but I started feeling peace, and I knew what it felt like. And so I started collecting more and more words and started just building my arsenal of things I needed to get through every day. So every day is different, and every day I need something a little different depending on what's going on.
Right. I love how you use them as an intention for the day, that you may not actually feel the word that you choose, but that's what you want to step into and feel, and that you are able to, once you choose that word, to just embrace the energy of that and what that would feel like and move towards that. And I think that is such a great tangible way to start making shifts in how we feel. Because I mean, how many times do we set goals for things, or we want to do something, or we want to be better, but we don't always know the first step to get to that and have happen. And so it's one of the reasons I love, talking to guests where they've moved through disempowering things. And I know your experience in sex trafficking and being a victim of that. I always say that you can have a victim experience, but you don't have to identify yourself as a victim. You can rise above that and use that to change your life. How have you been able to how do you shift that for yourself? I mean, first of all, you and I have talked about how sometimes people think that sex trafficking is something that happens to other people in a third world country, that there is like not this awareness that it can happen on your own block type thing. How are you helping people to see that this is a reality that's happening, and how are you utilizing that to empower yourself and others?
It was never something I expected to share because it is so full of shame and it is scary, and it's not something I wanted people to see me and think of, And, my therapist, I was in therapy for a lot of years, and it was hard and it was worth it because I have a beautiful life now that I never even could have imagined growing up. But I think people imagine sex trafficking as these third world countries, like you said, and these super poor areas that need money. And I grew up in a very wealthy neighborhood, and nobody would have ever guessed what was going on at our home. And I think it's important for people to understand that you can't look at somebody on the street and know their life. You can't look at anybody at the grocery store and think, oh, they have a great life, or oh, they don't have these incredibly difficult challenges of their life, because I was trafficked in the United States right here, and it happened multiple times a week. So it wasn't even a once in a while kind of thing. And I want people to understand how close it is in their neighborhoods. We've had busts all over the United States. In my city, we've had, people get arrested for this. And I'm grateful now to be a voice for the people that can't use their voice yet, because I was there for a long time. I couldn't use my voice. Now I can, and it's important for me to help anybody that I can just by sharing my story so that others can get rescued.
Right. So I have two things for our listeners that I'd love for you to share about, is that if somebody's listening and they're they're in the process of being trafficked, like things are happening to them right now, and most likely no one else knows about it. It's this undercover thing that's happening with them. What would you say to them, for one? And two, what could you speak to the parents who this is like their biggest fear, that something would happen to their children? Now, we know that sometimes in the family itself, they're part of the issue, right? That happens. But sometimes it is an extended family or things. Is there signs or things that parents can look at to help support their children in that? So for, the first part is for that person who's actually experiencing it themselves. And then for families, what can they do to help their own children?
So for somebody that's experiencing it right now, my biggest piece of advice would be to look for the heroes in your life. So I named my company Hero Bands because of those daily heroes in my life that I was around. My school teacher that I felt safe with, my neighbor down the street that I felt like I could go walk to and just talk. And they still didn't know what was going on in my life, but it's somebody I felt safe to be around. So my thoughts for somebody living in it now is to be around those safe people as much as you possibly can. If you don't feel it's safe to talk to them yet, still try to be around them as much as you can, because they will fill your bucket as much as you need it at that time. And when it is safe to be able to share that, make sure that you can in a safe environment. But if you can't yet, I understand that too. And just be around safe people that make you feel loved, real love. And for parents that are worried about this for their kids, that's hard, because I even worry about it for my kids. And I still wonder, am I doing enough and teaching them enough to keep them safe? I would just say, talk to your kids about the possibilities of this happening. Luckily, I wasn't raised in the social media world, but I have learned now that that is a huge trap for young kids and teenagers, is somebody tricking them into, variations of gifts and boyfriend and you're beautiful and come model. And there's so many different things in social media that are scary. So I would say monitor social media time. Keep track of who your kids follow and any messages or comments that are going back and forth between things. Don't share your number with people that you don't know and trust. And if it isn't a family member, then just be that safe place for your kids so they have safety when they're with you, and they will be able to talk to you about it if they feel safe.
Yeah,
I hope
definitely.
that's helpful.
Absolutely. It really is, because, I think some parents walk this fine line because their kids will be like, you're spying on me and, privacy, but then also being able to, depending on what age your children are at, to appropriately start explaining to them that, not everyone does have their back in the world. And just because someone says things that they maybe like to hear, right, where are they filling voids in their life of that, and really being able to have good conversations with your kids, and to a point where your kids feel open enough to talk to you about things, and to really bridge that relationship. And I know that's something that you and your husband really strive to do, especially with 5 children. My daughter has 4 children, and I know what it's like to balance that time. And you talk about having minutes with your kids, and it's really choosing how you have that individual attention, as well as some special time. Can you talk a little bit about that? About how you choose that in order to really spend that time with your kids?
Yeah, we do something called minutes, and we spend 10 minutes with each child individually. Almost every day. I'd say probably 5 days a week. They get to pick any activity they want. Sometimes it's playing basketball in the front yard. Sometimes it's playing Wii. Sometimes it's doing a cooking experiment or painting nails. And we do 10 minutes, both of us, with that one child. And I feel like it's important because, even if, so to back up a little bit, if your kid is doing social media that's unsafe and something happens, I also don't want the kids to feel like, oh, I knew better. I can't tell my parents this because I knew better. I shouldn't have X, Y, and Z, So I want my kids to know and understand that we have their back. If they make, well, not if, when they make stupid mistakes, because we all do, I still do all the time, I will be there for them, and I love them, and I want to help them through whatever kind of comes their way. And to us, it's very important to spend a good amount of time with each child so they know that they're just as important to us as this child or this child or this person. They're more important to us, than anything else. Right. So we do that with them every day. And then we do something called special time, where every Saturday, one of us will take that children out on an outing, and we'll go get frozen yogurt together, or we'll go miniature golfing together. They get to pick the activity, and we just one-on-one spend a good hour to 3 hours, depending on what it is and kind of how the conversation goes with them. So they know that we are invested in their life and they're our key focus.
Yeah, I love that. I think I respect so much, when a parent can say, hey, I make mistakes too, right? Because it gives kids permission to be human. And I think that was some of the mistakes that I made growing up, is not showing, because there was a lot of years I was a single mom, and, as police officer, and I also worked undercover, and there were so many things happening at that time that I wanted things to always look great for my kids. And I think in some ways, looking back, that was a disservice to, in just not necessarily comparing, but to maybe not always share things with me because I made things look good all the time. Right. And so I think it's important to, one, set the example for your kids, but also I love that you guys are consciously saying, hey, I don't always do it perfect. And then I think it makes it more approachable for kids to talk to their parents and to be able to do that. And I love how you incorporate fun in that. And I know that music is actually a big thing for you, and that you choose uplifting songs. And, you can talk a little bit how you incorporate just song in your daily life, and how it kind of just pulls you into just experiencing your day differently.
I am very careful of what music I listen to because, so you mentioned Kelly Clarkson, and I know it's so silly that I look up to her so much, but her lyrics in her songs when I was a teenager really helped me not feel alone. And even though she was speaking about something completely different than I was living, I felt like she understood how I felt.
Mm.
And I feel like music can do that for so many people. And so with my kids, we are very cautious of what the lyrics say in the songs we listen to. And they're not all just like Christian music or gospel music or things like that. It's just listening to the lyrics that can uplift or damage, kind of just, I don't know the right word. It has brought us so much joy to be able to see my son going through something hard and just turn on a song and have him listen to it and dance to it or cry to it or whatever emotion he needs to feel because of that. And I have learned that, well, I have told my kids many times, you're probably going to need therapy for something I accidentally did to mess up somewhere along the line. And I will help pay for it as long as you know that I did it with all the love. I parented you the best that I could, and I love you so much, but I am still going to mess up, because I've done things to make them hurt unintentionally. But music has bonded us together in a way that just talking couldn't. Having those sounds and the words together have kind of just brought us together as a family.
Right. Yeah. In these challenging times right now, we're hearing that there is an increase in child abuse and domestic violence, and especially suicide. The depression of what is happening in the world and people feeling more isolated than ever before. I know that even though you focus so much on positivity and the things that you do, that you still battle with depression and that you have moments of that. And I love how you speak to trying to catch yourself before it goes too far and to notice the signs around that. I think it would be really helpful to our listeners who may be feeling isolated right now. There's all this social distancing and social isolating. And, even when we move beyond that, it's not like it's going to change overnight. Like people are going to be moving through some really dark days and times. What can you do to speak to them to one, recognize that and how to move through it more smoothly?
I'm an empath, and I have cried many, many times over people going through these last few months because I feel their pain. I attempted suicide about 11 years ago, and I know what it feels like to feel alone and be, even not with social distancing, being surrounded by people and feeling alone. And I can only imagine how much more alone you'd feel having to be physically alone. So I think my advice is just take one breath at a time. It is hard and is painful to even breathe sometimes, but life always is changing, and it will get better, and then it will get bad again. I still struggle. I was a cutter for years, and I still am tempted to do that at times because I know that it helps to some degree. So don't add shame to yourself for some of the negative choices you might make during this time. Make the best choices you can. And if you make choices that add shame to your life, try to let that go, because that's going to drag you down when you can get through this, and it will get better eventually. Sometimes it might take a little while, but find some good songs that lift you up and it will get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And, you also talk about what are some of the secrets that you have as far as, making an impact and feeling, giving yourself almost permission to step into what you're doing. Talk about how it helps you to read notes from the different people that you've read notes to, and how that actually gives you the energy or inspiration to get through tough times.
I feel like you need to feel what you're supposed to feel, and pushing it down and pushing it away just builds up this pressure until it explodes. And I have learned to let myself feel the awful feelings for a time. Sometimes I'll even set a timer and say, okay, I'm going to let myself cry and ache and hurt for whatever situation is going on for the next 15 minutes. And then I'm going to figure out a way to pick myself up for the next few hours, if that's all I can do. And then I'll let myself feel it again if I need to, until I can get feeling better. And one of the ways I use to feel better, and I don't know if better is the right word, but to feel stronger, is I keep notes that friends or loved ones or even customers, people I don't know, notes that they have written me saying how I've helped them in some area of their life. And I have a little file, and I'll pull those out and I'll start reading them, and I find my purpose again. And I keep reminding myself of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's not to get the notes, it's not to have people tell me I'm wonderful, but it's to have it change their life in a positive way. And reading those, I see that, and I see that people are getting courage and getting through hard things because of hero bands, and that's why I'm doing it. So it helps me refocus and be able to be there again for them, or for people that I haven't been there for yet that still need me.
Right.
So I don't know if that makes sense, but
Absolutely. I so appreciate you talking about the things that whether it's the people or the notes or whatever's in your space, to remind you of what your purpose is. Like, I look at some of the things that I went through, whether it was, my divorce or my undercover work or being a single mom, just different challenging times. And sometimes I think about, like, well, who wants to hear about that? Or like, how's that going to be an impact? Or why is that important? And then I'll have somebody in my life and where they'll put it back into perspective, and I'll go like, it's because that's how I can help empower other people to move through those things, because we are in these, there's always another crisis, another challenge, there's uncertainty, there's these things. And, for us to be able to help people move through those, it solidifies why, not only why we went through it, because I think, one of the biggest things is to get stuck in, like, why did this happen to me? Or, what is possibly the purpose? But when we're actually doing our bigger work in the world, we can then see, like, okay, it's all happening for us to be able to help other people and to make those changes that we want to be able to do. And I know you also talk about talking to God in different ways. What's the different ways, and what are some of the things that you're doing? Because I can imagine some of those conversations are not always like, I don't know if they're confrontational, but there might be some things where I would love to hear some of the different ways you're talking with God, because I love to hear people have some of their conversations where it's not just all, thanks for all the flowers and unicorns, God. What the hell?
yeah, no, there has been confrontation, and I'm sure, there's been times he's wanted to yell at me just as I've been yelling at him. But honestly, I have, there's a couple different ways I've done it. I often just talk to him like he's sitting right here. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Really? This is what's going on? Why? You talk about the why. I give him that a lot. Why? And then, same thing, just, you need to be able to help other people. You need to be able to understand the pain people are going through and feel it. And if you hadn't been through those hard things, you wouldn't be able to feel it and be there for the people in the same way, And the biggest thing I do, and sounds a little hokey, but it really works for me, and it works for my kids, is I just kind of take stuff off of me that's not really there, but if something's feeling heavy or hard, I take it off and I give it to God physically. I do it when I'm driving. If I start getting anxiety, I just take it off and give it. And I imagine him taking it and just getting rid of it for me. And I'm trusting him to be able to do that. And it feels like a literal weight is lifted off me when I'm able. And people don't even know what I'm doing. Often I'm at the gym and I'm like, okay, it looks like I'm getting a piece of hair off me. But what I'm doing is I'm getting this trigger that triggered me, or I don't even understand this feeling, but I don't like it. So I'm going to give it to God, because I believe God is there for us and he loves us. And so I feel like he will take care of that if I give it to him. Mm-hmm. Now, if I don't give it to him, he's not going to force me and come take all the things from me. Mm-hmm. And so I have to physically give it to him. And so that seems a little odd, but I've only started doing that the last year or so, and it's really made a difference in my life. And I feel such lighter and just calmer peace since I've been doing that.
I think it's a brilliant tool. I mean, I think it's so important to actually put physicality to your thoughts, because sometimes if you're just in your thoughts, you can be spinning or in your
Mm-hmm.
emotions, or you like, what do you do with them? But it's almost like why you feel better when you go to the gym, right? Because you're
Mm-hmm.
moving your body around and you're making a shift and change. So to actually
Mm-hmm.
physically go, this on here, I am giving over
Mm-hmm.
here, catch it, here it goes. I think that there's something just satisfying in being able, in times where you maybe feel helpless, that there's nothing you can do, that's actually a doing action.
Yeah.
So I think that that is like really great to just kind of put that in there. And so I love how with such care that you've created the people that you surround yourself with, your home, your family, those kind of things. And one of the things I always love to ask my guests, because we do create our experiences and our life, and we have, excuse me, we have different experiences, like in our bedroom versus our kitchen versus our office. What is
Mm-hmm.
your favorite room in your home and why?
Hmm. Honestly, my kitchen, because I feel like that's where we usually all are together. And often my kids help me cook dinner, and we all have dinner after jobs, and we do dance around the kitchen 90% of the time that we're cleaning up. And I love that we're all together, and it's almost always a happy place when we're in there. And
Yeah.
so probably, I know that's really random, but probably my kitchen.
You know, it's funny. I have a friend of mine who she says life happens between the bathroom and the kitchen.
That's
Like,
probably accurate.
and it's because that's where we spend our time, right? This is where we get to connect and where we get to, live life. So I love that you really spend that time with your kids, and that you really are making this a family affair and making that happen. And I love how you're standing to be this positive disruptor in the world. And I love that word because, there's a lot of disruption that happens, but when people are choosing to be a positive version, how can you shift and change things in the world in a positive way? And I'd love for you to share a little bit about how it's actually one of the most scariest things for you to talk about your past. There
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of, we hear the stories, but from someone who actually experienced it, about the threats and terrors if you open your mouth that something will happen to yourself or people that you love. It's actually one of the biggest barriers to break for someone who has been victimized repeatedly, to break out of that silence. Can you speak a little bit about how, because you even went and spoke, you speak to large audiences, and I know that it brings up fear and terror in you every time you speak. And you even spoke in the city that you were actually trafficked in, which I'm sure added even an additional layer to that. Can you
Mm-hmm.
speak to what that experience was like, and how by actually doing the things that make you the most fearful, it actually allows you to get your power back?
Yeah, it definitely does. I still have awful nightmares and night terrors often, many times a week. And I wake up thanking God that I'm not in that life anymore. But for years, I was so scared that the threats they had made my entire life would happen, and it would be my fault because I spoke and I knew better. I shouldn't have told these secrets. And I have learned by telling the secrets, I've actually made myself safer. And I've given myself the power back, because they had the power always. If I was scared and not willing to share my truth, then they had control. And I just decided eventually that it wasn't fair for them to have power when I hadn't seen them for 10 years. It wasn't fair for them to still have so much control over me. And I had so many people in my corner now that I felt safe to do it. And when I spoke in my growing up town, I had family members fly in to stand in the audience for protection.
Mm.
So when I looked out, I could see, and I get emotional, excuse me, thinking about this, but I see all the people um, that know this is real and know this happened to me. They were in my life at the time, and they were scattered out throughout the audience of 1,000 people or more. And I just looked at their face, and I knew I was safe, and I knew I was protected. And I knew if anything happened to me or my children or my family, that everybody would know where to look and everybody would know where to go. So they don't dare do anything to me or my kids because they know they're unsafe if they do.
Right.
So it's just given me more power back than I ever pictured.
Right. Well, I so admire you, and I so appreciate you just being bold and brave and to stand out there. And I know that there are people in our audience that that have had similar experiences that people have no idea about. And so just you being vulnerable to speak your truth and to share that, I know that you've saved some lives. And I just want you to know that it is really makes a big difference. And I know that people are going to want to stay in contact with you. And if you could share a little bit about not only how to stay in contact with you, but about hero bands and how people can get those and have the power of the words that they can then live into and feel more safe in the world.
Yeah, I can be found, my website is herobands.com, and I do also share some more of my story on there also. On Instagram, it's hero_bands, and Facebook is just Hero Bands. I am the only one in charge of emails right now, and the email address is info@herobands.com, and I would love to be a support to anybody that needs it. Please feel free to reach out anytime. I honestly do this so that I can be there for other people and help them through whatever they're going through. And I've made bands for people struggling with illnesses and loss of loved ones and just the overwhelmingness of being a mother or a father. And I love how they can be so versatile and help so many people going through so many different things. And it's a tangible thing that they can touch and get the power from. So I would love to hear your stories. I would love for you to reach out, and I'm here anytime.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for not only being on the show, but just being a light in the world and sharing your wisdom. It's been truly a pleasure having you here with us.
Thanks, Diane. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, I just want to thank you so much for your precious resource of your time, for being here with us, for bearing witness to this story, and really looking at what are the things that you can do in the world and start asking yourself the questions around how can you move through crisis? What kind of support can you have? We'd love to hear some of your comments. Please make sure that you tag both Elizabeth and myself. We're happy to answer any of your questions. I'm actually going to be putting in the show notes as well I'm going to really start helping people with some more skills around empowering yourself around crisis and empowering yourself during uncertain times, because I think it's so helpful to have the tools that we need to get through those kind of things. So we are here as a community. This is how we get our voice out into the world. This is how we make positive change, by having tangible things to make a difference in the world. And I know that you two are a positive disruptor in the world, and we so appreciate your energy. Please share this, subscribe it, get it out in the world. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.